Hey Deployment Insider, we as Rangers often get questions like, what is the best way to deploy the Microsoft 365 apps, or how should I update them? And of course there's no one size fits all type of answer. But today Bob and I will sit down and cover some common scenarios and share some proven practices around it. So let's get started. Welcome back. So today we want to talk about some common scenarios and some proven practices that we have experienced when we're working with our customers. And that's not just me talking, I have also Bob on the call.
Hey everyone, good to be here.
How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How about you, Martin?
Yeah, I'm excited to have, that's a completely or nearly completely unscripted video. And we want to talk about different scenarios. So we were thinking like small, medium, large environments, and maybe extra large environments. Share some tips and tricks around how can you deploy the Microsoft 365 apps. What can we say about update channels or how to service these apps, as well as some other tips and tricks we would like to share. So, ready to get started?
Yeah, let's see how far down the rabbit hole we end up.
Okay, sounds good. All right, let's start with a small t-shirt size. So small shop, maybe 50 seats. Bob, you're in a call with maybe a friend or a customer, very small tenant. What would you say? How to deploy the Microsoft 365 apps?
Yeah, so when you get into this, and we are obviously the Rangers work with a lot of larger enterprise customers, but we get hit up all the time, and we're always on like social threads like Reddit and Discord, talking to admins that sit daily in the small business category. And generally you're a small IT shop if that's the case, right? Maybe you're 1-2 people, and you're not just servicing and deploying Office, you're doing a dozen other things at the same time. So our approach is always like keep it simple, I think is the best way to go. Don't make things over complex. From a deployment perspective, we have the Office deployment tool, we have the XMLs. You can get nitty gritty. You can go through our ODT document that's got all the elements and properties you want to get into. But my recommendation, take the vanilla ODT, vanilla XML, and that's your package. Or if you go into, if you're on the Microsoft plane and you're using something like Intune, check out the Microsoft 365 apps for Windows application. That does have some configuration to walk you through, but at least it's in a GUI. It's very simple, explains everything. Pick your apps in your channel, and then you don't have to go back and maintain that. It's kind of a one-time application of the config, and then start deploying into your devices, right?
Sounds good. I would actually say sometimes you can even make it simpler, especially so your environment best. If all your users are admins and you can easily tap them on their shoulder and say, can you please go to office.com, log in, hit the button on the top right to install, then the users can self-service themselves. If it's just a bunch of seats, that's maybe the fastest way to get the Microsoft 365 apps out of the door.
Great call out. Plus, you're teaching the end user how to self-service, right? So when they go reinstall or they get a new device, they're not coming back to IT and saying, help me get Office. They're familiar with going to the Office portal, signing in, and it's just one button. And essentially that's downloading the ODT all set up with the XML and, just running it for the user. That's how I do it whenever I rebuild my laptop. So, yep.
Yeah, but maybe you're not the average Office user.
I'm not a good test candidate in that case. Yeah, it's probably a good estimation.
So for these scenarios, very simple, straightforward scenarios, what is the right update channel to pick?
Good question. So, we're obviously just put out the video on update channels. So there, you can check that out. There's a lot of channels to choose from. But again, I'd say keep it simple. So current channel being the default, current channel is our general recommendation for most organizations. So assuming your organization is not overly complex, even though you're in the smaller category, I would say keep the default. Use current channel. Let your devices update. I would say back that up though. Like I'm just talking to some other admins recently where they went that route. They're a small business. And then a year later they go run a report or something and they find out they have all these different channels in the environment. And the guidance there is like, make sure you have some form of a policy or something backing up, not just your deployment with the config, but kind of preventing configuration drift. Something else happens in the environment that causes devices to flip channels or something. You want to take in control of that.
Yeah. I would like to put a twist on this. So we have, for example, the security update status page in the Microsoft 365 Apps Admin Center. And for small shops, I always say, go to config.office.com, sign in, enable the service. When you're doing this the first time, wait for the data to populate, and then check the security update status, maybe once per quarter or something like this. It's not like you have to do this every day, but at least once per quarter, go to the security update status page, check, do my devices get your updates? If not, get the list of maybe the 2, 3, 4 which are dragging their feet. And this will also show you if people are kind of going on to other update channels and then react to this. So maybe it's worth saving the upfront work proactively, that for very small environments, it's maybe sufficient to say, yeah, once per quarter I check and then I react if it's needed.
A great call, right? I mean, going into the Apps Admin Center, getting inventory turned on, I think something long-term will have this on by default for a lot of customers. But right now you still need to go in there and turn that on. And it's a one-time thing. And like you said, go in there quarterly or as often as you choose. Check out your inventory, check out your security update status, see if it aligns to what you think it does. And if it doesn't, now you have some actionable steps you can take. And in terms of the configuration drift, admins always kind of ask me like, how is this happening? You know, I set it in my package. What could possibly cause it to drift? You know, there's scenarios. One user goes to Best Buy and buys himself a new laptop, writes it off. It's got Office installed, so they just sign in with their corporate ID. That Office install, not on the channel that you expect it to be on, right? So there's lots of different ways things can happen in an environment, and it's just kind of the nature of multiple users, multiple devices, especially if users have admin rights too. So yeah, check out the Apps Admin Center and consider doing some policy management for your updates.
Yeah. Let's look at the next scenario when we go from small size to medium size. So let's say I have 500 seats or maybe 1,000 seats somewhere in this ballpark in my environment. What would you say is different from a small environment?
Yeah, so I'm gonna go kind of option A, option B. Option A being again, if you can keep it simple, if the industry you work in and the users you have can accommodate current channel, you know, check out again the update channel video. You know, there's a higher frequency worth of updates every month that you kind of need to be in pace with, and getting your updates from the CDN and whatnot. But once you kind of hit the pathway of maybe you have some complexities in the environment, at that size, you know, you've been around for a while, you might have some legacy macros or add-ins or something in the environment that's kind of causing you to be weary of getting updates very quickly. Then monthly enterprise channel might venture into this conversation as well. It's definitely a safe bet. It still makes sure your users are getting the performance and feature updates as they come out, but also on a more predictable and reliable kind of schedule so that you can test, you have extended support if you need it, you can roll back, all those different things. Now, what's your 2 cents?
So you're talking about not only monthly enterprise channel, but also using servicing profiles when you're talking about kind of rollback and stuff.
Yeah. Back in the Apps Admin Center,
Yeah. I would say regarding this decision between current channel and monthly enterprise, so the one aspect is when you keep on a regular basis checking the security update status page, for example, and you notice my environment cannot keep up with the change which is introduced by current channel. So my devices are always 2-3 months behind, and I always have to kind of give these devices a manual nudge then it's a clear sign for I need some update control, some update enforcement, and then enabling servicing profiles is the easiest way, which brings you onto the monthly enterprise channel. And the same is if, as you mentioned, you kind of are aware of areas in your environment where they can't take kind of weekly updates, always latest features, they want to take it a bit slower. That's also an indication, okay, let's switch from current channel to monthly enterprise, which is easy with servicing profiles.
Yep.
So I would say an environment of this size, especially when we go towards the 1,000 devices, and proactive update management might be mandatory. And I would say the same for deployment. So you mentioned for small business, if you have Intune, for kind of, if I have a shop with 500 or 1,000 seats, I would say I need Intune. Then I have to manage deployment because it's just too costly from a time perspective to do this manually.
Yeah, plus, again, Office is just one puzzle piece over across the whole IT org, right? So how you're doing device provisioning, whatever your device management solution is, and how you're going to package your apps. So again, if Intune's in the play, if you're still using Config Manager, you can adjust accordingly to the packaging solution there. But always the effort and a lot of the energy the engineering group puts into the products that we build is to make it easier for the IT admin. I mean, that's exactly what Servicing Profiles was intended to be, was an easier update management tool versus, syncing a WSUS server and picking out your updates and doing all these different things. But yeah, and the nature of deployment, Intune still being a great tool for that. I think as we get, into probably the larger business scale, but this might bridge the gap too of, do you still use the native Office CSP version or the Microsoft 365 apps for Windows package, or do you start packaging a custom XML and putting it into a Win32 app to accommodate other scenarios like running a script beforehand or something of that nature? But there's some more complexities to get into.
Yeah, you already touched on larger environments. So if we look above 1,000 seats, so kind of 5,000 seats, maybe 10,000 seats, what would, from your perspective, change, or what an admin should add to the mix to herd the sheep?
Yeah,
Microsoft 365 apps.
So the nice thing is, I would say at this stage, I feel like monthly enterprise channel is a kind of one size fits all update channel. I mean, that in the sense that that's what we're shooting for. We want it to be for businesses and organizations to be the kind of the de facto standard if you can't use current channel. But now you're starting to venture into potentially much more complex environments, a lot more different users, lots of different business units, maybe some acquisitions. You pulled things into your environment you didn't expect. And even still, a lot of the conversations we talk to customers today on, they've had M365 apps going back many releases, right? Maybe they're still on MSI and they're upgrading to M365 apps. So we've taken all those scenarios into play. This is where you might start to see a split channel configuration. Maybe you have monthly enterprise channel on the majority of your devices, but you have some mission critical devices as you're making these changes, where something like semi-annual makes sense. It's not something an end user's building their slide decks on for a major conference, but instead are running some form of automation workflows or something that you want to ensure doesn't get disrupted for business needs, right?
Yep, sounds good. Good call out on semi-annual. I have to add something on semi-annual in a minute. I wanted to add, especially regarding the Apps Admin Center, and I agree, this size, I would also say monthly enterprise channel is in most cases the better fitting solution over current channel. And when we look at servicing profiles, we have also the ability to create waves. So when imagine I'm the admin for 5,000, 10,000 seats, I would definitely use the capability to create rollout waves and say, okay, my IT goes first, then my friendly users go in the second wave, and then I don't know, 40% of my environment go in the third wave, and then everyone else in the last wave. Just because of the size of my org, if something goes wrong, there are so many devices I would have to roll back. That's possible with servicing profiles, but I can reduce the risk and create additional safety net by now using rollout waves. So that's one aspect I would call out. On semi-annual, there's one downside to semi-annual, or it's a big downside. I always saying, if you're saying semi-annual, you also have to say semi-annual preview channel.
Yeah.
So if you're deciding I need these 100 machines or 200 machines on semi-annual because they can't take churn, I have to test semi-annual preview first when it's released, because while it's in the preview phase, that's the time I can interact and communicate with my vendors or with Microsoft. Hey, this new release is breaking something.
Yep.
This new version is breaking something. Can you fix this before it moves on into the regular semi-annual enterprise channel, where basically there are no more bug fixes or very limited ones. So it's much harder. And that's always a point where I say, especially when you're not a really large organization, do I want to invest this effort of doing testing every 6 months? Or do I go with monthly enterprise across the board and that's it?
Yeah, and I think that even calls back to your point on the waves. I mean, whether you're using servicing profiles, ideally, make your life easier, or you've come up with some complex policies and deferrals to kind of simulate wave deployments. Because a lot of the admins that are on semi-annual that I talk to are there because that extended support, they look at that, 14 months, this is where I've got plenty of time, plenty of breathing room that allows me, and that's true. That is currently the support duration, but at the cost of a lot of benefits too. But if in reality, like, how long do you really need to test? Do you need a good 5 or 10, is 5 and 10 days, 15 days between your broad deployment and your various test groups enough time if you also have the controls to pause your deployment, roll back impacted devices, and then proceed when the time is necessary? Because if that is the case, monthly enterprise channel and servicing profiles really makes sense in that picture, because you can set up your waves exactly to fit that mold without missing a beat. You're not going to have devices that don't update by the end of the month. But it gives you plenty of time to kind of get a pulse on the environment. If something's going to come up, it's probably going to get raised in those first few waves so that you can take action before any serious dilemmas, right?
So I would say from my perspective, we covered common or proven practices, common approaches. Anything I have forgotten you would like to add or mention?
Yeah, I think this is sort of general day-to-day conversations we have. I would say probably the only other thing I get asked is just, how do I get started? Maybe my scenario is I'm on MSI and I'm wanting to go to M365 apps. Certainly the points we picked would hopefully help you pick what channel and how you're going to deploy that. But there's a lot of other things to unravel in terms of testing and which devices should I move first, and how do I know if it's impacting the device. And I mean, I'll let you throw in. I would say definitely, we've already mentioned it, the Apps Admin Center is a great tool for this, whether you're coming from older versions of Office or maybe going from slower update channels to faster ones. But that tool set, what you get in inventory, security update status, and apps health is hopefully going to give you a lot of the data that you need to make the right decisions there.
Yeah, I would add, especially when you're looking at an upgrade scenario, I can put a few links into the description on, for example, if you're using Config Manager, how can you prepare your collections to cover all the different update channels so it's easier for you as an admin to see the different update channels? How can you build we call it sometimes a smart deployment package. So it's not 100% everything is hard-coded, but you can instruct the setup engine to make decisions. I want to install Visio, for example, based on the fact if Visio was on the box before. It's called MSI Condition, and I released a video on this just recently. So I can put a few links in to make these technologies or use them in a smarter way and not kind of I hard code everything till the last bit and byte. And also, especially with kind of coming from Germany, and we're kind of very keen on kind of planning everything, be brave and try it out. Convert a few machines, upgrade a few machines. I've seen customers going crazy, for example, with the Office Readiness Toolkit, kind of scanning 2 million VBA macro documents and then kind of planning how to act on this for 3 months. And when they actually deployed, nothing happened, or just a handful of documents broke. And from a business perspective, it was far cheaper to allow these 10 to break and then fix them, instead of trying to understand, hey, I have 2 million documents which might break and what can I do? So be brave in terms of dip the toe in the water and start deploying, check how it's going, and then slowly progress, and everything is fine. Just go faster.
Yep, that's excellent piece of feedback. Yeah, we spend months and months talking it through, and it's like, get those first, get that first 10% of your environment in the group, and just start flighting it, because that's when that's the best way to find where the bumps are going to be. You can definitely spend some time. Cool. Yeah, and I think closing thoughts, if there's something we haven't touched on, a scenario that you're running into actively, or you have and you want to know if you handled it the right way or something, like hit us up in the comments section, because there's been a lot of, like on the other videos, we're seeing a lot more churn on questions and things. That's super helpful for us to kind of know what we should put videos out on, what questions we can answer. So yeah, if you haven't done that yet, that'd be very recommended.
I can only echo this. Feel free to put comments into the comment section. We're reading them all, and we're trying to answer, or we're good at answering all of them and trying to provide guidance. I think we covered all the different scenarios. Hopefully there are a lot of good information and nuggets in what we have covered for you, for your scenarios, what you can try it in your environment, or validate or evaluate if this is fitting your needs. Bob, I would say thanks for your time. Dear Deployment Insiders, thanks for your time as well. If you would like to see more, as always, subscribe to our channel, click the notification button so you don't miss any future videos. And then till next time, keep on deploying.